the best ways that I learn about what is trafficking is through the USCIS website. So you can go to the policy manual, just Google policy manual, and see that volume 3 is humanitarian, part B is for victims of trafficking. And I'm over here in the eligibility requirements. You can scroll down and see kind of what are they call it the ends and the means, like what's the action and what was the intended end and what was the means that they did it. And that's how USCIS, that's how, when we're doing a trafficking case, we break it down. But what is like harboring mean? What does coercion mean? I think coercion is really the one that happens probably the most, or it's at least the easiest for me to conceptualize. So when we have the regulations define coercion as threats of serious harm or physical restraint of any person, any scheme to do that, and, that would result in serious harm or abuse or threatened abuse of the legal process. And this is where we see this last one, especially where we see our clients really experience a lot of coercion because they're so afraid of getting into trouble with American authorities that they'll do about anything that they're asked or they're pressured to do a lot of different. And then when we look at what is serious harm and what are threats, really it's just this one right here. Threats of serious harm are all of these different things, really broad. So harm to third parties close to the victim. I'm going to harm your kids. I'm going to harm your wife. I'm going to hurt I would argue like your animals, depending on, what the situation is. Banishment. So I'm going to throw you out. I'm going to cut you off completely from your family, not providing food. If you don't do a certain thing, you're not going. I know that one of our clients, like she was living with someone and part of her living arrangements was she was provided with food, 1 meal a day. That was, and 1 meal a day is starvation. When we can look at, what is expected in a developing country, you see even in developing countries, much less first world countries that are already developed, 1 meal a day is not sufficient. And then I'm going to cause you to lose be it bankruptcy of the victim and then subjecting them to isolation. So not giving them a self, cutting them off from the outside world, knowing that you have them where in Kansas especially, it's in any remote place, it's very easy to isolate people because there's no public transportation. And then if you do have access to public transportation, let's say you have access to a car or to the bus or something like that, and even in Phoenix, you can lock someone in the home or let them out if you don't allow them to sleep. This is something we definitely see as a form of punishment, not allowing people to sleep or get rest, refusing to allow them to send money to their family. So you're doing all this work and you're not, and this is where we see a lot of spouses trafficking or causing threats of serious harm, where you're not allowed to send money to your mom or your dad or your grandparents or your sister, your cousins in your home country. You're not allowed to do that. I control all the money. That's a big red flag. And a lot of times they'll say it's because we don't have enough money for ourselves. But this is, refusing. It doesn't really matter what the reason is when they're refusing to allow money to be sent home to the victim's family. When we have withholding of pay, this is such a common one for the inability to pay off a large debt. This one, I recently watched the movie Elvis, like literally Elvis with, like Elvis Presley, and it starred Tom Hanks. And Elvis was clearly trafficked by his manager, Colonel, whatever the guy went by. And this was the form of trafficking right here until I saw this. But really, it's anytime you have a large debt where it's like, there's no way you're ever going to be able to repay this. So you keep working and working and working, and there's just no end in sight. If you are threatened to be removed from the United States or deported, this is where I'm going to call ICE on you. Anything like that. This is a threat of serious harm. It's right here in the regulation. So that's really remarkable. And then we also have things in the employment setting, especially where I'm going to accuse you of stealing. Or, if you turn me into the authorities, I'm going to say that you abused me. We see this a lot in domestic violence type cases where it might appear to be domestic violence, where a lot of times it's the woman who says this to the man, where she's actually hitting the immigrant, harming the immigrant, abusing the immigrant. And she says, I will call the police on you and I will say you're doing it to me. This is reputational harm, and it's using the legal process against the client. So I'll include the link to this so that you can go through. And even if we see patterns of this type of thing, really, trafficking is so broad. So I'll go through a couple of these as the weeks go on so that you can see what this is. But man, definition of coercion, where this is just the first piece, this the threat of serious. We haven't even gotten into what physical restraint is, the scheme, plan, or pattern, or the abuse of legal process. We're just alluding to the threat of it in this first video that I'm doing. Pretty freaking powerful stuff.